Have you ever ended a day feeling completely exhausted, not from work, not from chores, but from replaying conversations in your head? Have you ever laid awake at night, analyzing a single comment someone made, a glance you couldn't quite decipher? That feeling isn't just in your mind. It's the silent price you pay for a life lived on emotional autopilot. It's the slow, steady drain of your most vital resource. We're not talking about money or time. We're talking about your inner energy. For years, we've been told to manage our emotions, to just be positive, as if a simple switch could turn off the storm inside. But the truth is, most of our exhaustion doesn't come from the big, dramatic events. It comes from the small, constant leaks. A careless word from a colleague, a message left on read, a perceived slight from a family member. Each one is a tiny puncture, and by the end of the day, you're left feeling deflated, wondering where all your strength went. You're not weak or overly sensitive. You've simply been operating with a system that was never designed to protect your peace. This video is not another list of hollow mantras. This is an intervention. We're going to introduce you to a practical, time-tested training system. It's not about becoming cold or numb. It's about becoming a fortress. We're going to draw from the ancient philosophy of Stoicism, not as a dry academic subject, but as what it was always meant to be, a user manual for the human mind. Together, we are going to do more than just patch up the leaks. We are going to rebuild your inner operating system from the ground up, so that you, not the outside world, decide where your energy flows. This is how you stop being bothered, not by ignoring the world, but by mastering yourself. Before we can build, we must first understand the ground we're building on. Why does a seemingly innocent comment have the power to ruin your entire day? Why does being misunderstood feel like a physical blow? The answer, for most of us, is that we are not reacting to the present moment. We are reacting to the echoes of our past. The Stoics understood this profoundly. What disturbs us is not the event itself, but our judgment about the event. And those judgments are almost always shaped by old, unhealed wounds. Think of it this way. If you have a fresh sunburn, even the lightest touch feels agonizing. But if your skin is healthy, that same touch is barely noticeable. Our emotional world works in exactly the same way. A critical comment from a boss doesn't just sting on its own, it lands on the old wound of a parent who was never satisfied. The silence from a friend doesn't just create uncertainty, it activates a deep-seated fear of abandonment you've carried since childhood. You think you're angry about what just happened, but you're actually grieving something that happened long ago. This is what it means to be responding from unhealed pain. It's a constant, subconscious bleeding of your energy, where every new interaction threatens to reopen an old scar. Let me tell you about a man named Michael, a talented architect in his late 40s. Michael was a perfectionist, but he was also incredibly sensitive to criticism. During project reviews, if a client pointed out even a minor flaw, Michael wouldn't just hear feedback. He would hear, "You are not good enough." He would become defensive, argumentative, and spend days replaying the moment, his confidence shattered. His team saw him as difficult, he saw himself as a failure. One evening, after a particularly harsh review, he didn't lash out. He simply sat in his car, overwhelmed, and for the first time, asked himself a different question: why does this hurt so much? The question led him back. He remembered his father, a stern, demanding man who would inspect his childhood drawings, not with praise, but with a red pen, circling every mistake. "Almost, but not quite," his father would say. In that moment, sitting in his car, Michael realized he wasn't a 48-year-old architect being critiqued by a client. He was a 7-year-old boy, desperately seeking the approval of a father he could never please. The client's feedback was just the light touch on a lifelong sunburn. That realization didn't magically solve everything, but it was the beginning of his freedom. He understood that to stop the bleeding, he had to stop blaming the present and start healing the past. Healing, in this sense, isn't about forgetting. It's about understanding. It's about looking at your own reactions with curiosity instead of judgment, and finally giving yourself the compassion you never received. This is the foundational step. Because you cannot build a fortress on broken ground. Once you understand that your reactions are often echoes from the past, the next question is a practical one: what do you do about it? How do you stand in the present moment, hear that critical comment, and not let it hijack your entire being? This is where we move from understanding to training. This is where we introduce the most crucial tool in your new toolbox: emotional discipline. Now, the term discipline can sound harsh, like something rigid and punishing. But in the context of Stoicism, it's the complete opposite. It's not about suppressing your feelings or pretending you don't have them. That's just another way to bury a wound. Emotional discipline is the learned ability to create a space between a trigger and your response. It's in that small, quiet space that your freedom lies. It's the power to feel the flash of anger, the sting of hurt, or the wave of anxiety, and to consciously choose not to be swept away by it. It's the difference between being the storm and being the calm observer of the storm. Modern neuroscience actually gives us a name for this practice: cognitive reappraisal. It sounds complex, but the idea is simple and incredibly powerful. It means actively reframing the story you tell yourself about what's happening. The event itself is neutral. The story you attach to it is what creates the emotion. For example, a colleague speaks over you in a meeting. The automatic, unhealed reaction might be, "They are disrespecting me. They think I'm insignificant." That story generates feelings of anger and shame. But with cognitive reappraisal, you intentionally introduce a different story. You pause and ask, what else could this mean? Perhaps they were just excited and got carried away. Perhaps they are under immense pressure from their own boss and weren't even thinking. Or, perhaps they are indeed rude, but their rudeness is a reflection of their own insecurity, not your worth. Do you see the shift? The event didn't change, but by changing the narrative, you change the emotional outcome. You are no longer the victim of the story, you are the author. This isn't about being naive or making excuses for others. It's a strategic move to protect your own inner peace. You are taking the focus off what you cannot control, someone else's behavior, and placing it squarely on what you can control, your interpretation. This is the heart of Stoic practice. So how do you start? You start small. The next time you feel that familiar emotional surge, don't react. Just pause. For 3 seconds. In those 3 seconds, your only job is to notice the feeling and say to yourself, "Ah, there is the anger," or, "There is the hurt." You are not the anger. You are not the hurt. You are the one who is noticing it. This simple act of pausing and naming is the first step in creating that crucial space. It's the first rep in building your emotional muscle. It is the beginning of learning not just to live, but to consciously steer your life. Now that you have the foundational tool of emotional discipline, we need to talk about strategy. Because having a tool is one thing, knowing when and where to use it is another. And the most important strategic decision you will make every single day is where you invest your energy. We are so careful with our money, our time, and our physical possessions, yet we are reckless with our most precious and finite resource, our mental and emotional energy. Ask yourself, are you tired? Not from work, not from life's necessary duties, but from the invisible weight of other people's opinions and the endless loop of negative thoughts. This isn't just a feeling, it's a documented psychological phenomenon. Scientists call it rumination, which is the compulsive act of thinking over and over again about negative events and feelings. The word comes from the way a cow chews its cud, regurgitating the same food to chew it again. That's precisely what we do with our painful thoughts. We bring them back up, chew on them, swallow them, only to bring them back up again. And research from institutions like the American Psychological Association has shown that this cycle doesn't lead to solutions. It leads to one thing: mental exhaustion. It actively depletes your cognitive resources, making it harder to focus, harder to solve problems, and harder to feel joy. Think of your mind as a home. Rumination is like leaving the front door wide open for any passing anxiety or perceived insult to wander in, track mud on your carpets, and refuse to leave. You wouldn't allow that in your physical home, so why do you allow it in your mind? Protecting your energy starts with becoming a gatekeeper. It's the conscious decision to say, this thought is not welcome here. This argument is not worth my peace. This person's drama is not my burden to carry. There was a woman named Sarah, a high school teacher who poured her heart into her work. But she was also a people pleaser. She would spend her evenings ruminating over every little thing, a student who seemed bored, a parent who sent a curt email, a colleague who didn't invite her to lunch. She was constantly drained, living in a state of low-grade anxiety. Her aha moment came when she started a simple evening ritual. Before bed, she would take out a notebook and draw 2 columns, what nourished me today, and what drained me today. After just 1 week, the pattern was undeniable. 80% of her exhaustion came from 20% of the situations she was replaying in her mind, situations she had absolutely no control over. From that day on, she began to set mental boundaries. When a negative thought about a student's comment came up, she would acknowledge it and say to herself, "Thank you for the information, but I am choosing not to dwell on this." She started to see her energy as a budget. And she decided she would no longer spend it on things that gave her no positive return. It was difficult at first, but slowly, she began to feel a sense of lightness. She had more energy for her teaching, for her family, and for herself. She didn't change the world around her. She changed where she focused her attention. And in doing so, she took back her power. Once you've made the firm decision to protect your energy, you'll discover that one of your most powerful shields is something you already possess: your silence. In a world that is obsessed with having the last word, with snappy comebacks and public takedowns, choosing silence is a radical act. It is often mistaken for weakness, for passivity, for having nothing to say. But true, intentional silence is none of those things. It is a declaration. It is a quiet, unshakable statement that says, "I refuse to let your chaos become my own. I will not participate in this battle, because my peace is more valuable than my pride." Think about the last pointless argument you were in. Did anyone walk away feeling victorious? Or did everyone just leave feeling drained, misunderstood, and resentful? The philosopher and emperor Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. Every time you engage in a needless conflict, you are forgetting this fundamental truth. You are handing over the keys to your inner state, allowing someone else's provocation to dictate your emotions and drain your energy. Active silence is the act of taking those keys back. It's not the silence of fear, where you desperately wish you could say something. It's the silence of power, where you realize you don't need to. Consider the story of a man named David, a project manager known for his calm demeanor. He worked with a brilliant but volatile colleague who would often try to provoke him in meetings, challenging his decisions with sarcastic and aggressive questions. In his younger years, David would have taken the bait. He would have fought back with logic, trying to win the argument and prove his point. But he learned that winning the argument often meant losing something far more important: the respect of his team and his own tranquility. One day, during a tense presentation, the colleague interrupted him. "Are you seriously suggesting this is the best we can do, David? It seems incredibly short-sighted." The room fell silent, expecting fireworks. The old David would have launched into a detailed defense. But the man he had become simply paused. He looked at his colleague, held his gaze for a moment without aggression, and then turned back to the rest of the team. "As I was saying," he continued, calmly walking them through the next point of his plan. He didn't ignore the comment, he absorbed it and chose not to give it his energy. Later, several team members approached him, not to talk about the project, but to tell him how much they admired his professionalism. His silence spoke louder than any rebuttal ever could. It demonstrated control, confidence, and an absolute refusal to be pulled into the mud. This is a skill you can practice. The next time you feel the urge to defend yourself against a baseless accusation, to correct every misunderstanding, or to jump into a toxic online debate, try an experiment. Say nothing. Just observe the urge. Observe the other person's need for a reaction. In that space, you will discover a profound sense of control. You will realize that you don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. And this brings us to a moment of commitment. If any of this resonates with you, if you felt that drain from pointless arguments and misunderstandings, I want you to take a moment. The act of writing something down makes it real. It solidifies your intention. So, I invite you to share in the comments one thing you will stop giving your energy to, starting today. It might be a person, a situation, or a recurring negative thought. By naming it, you are taking the first step toward reclaiming your power over it. You are declaring that your inner peace is officially no longer up for negotiation. Once you have learned to protect your energy by refusing to engage in pointless battles, you are ready for one of the most liberating steps in this entire journey, letting go of the need to be understood. This may sound isolating at first, but it is the exact opposite. It is the key to true self-possession. For many of us, the desire to be seen correctly, to have our intentions validated, is a deeply ingrained need. We believe that if we could just explain ourselves perfectly, if we could just find the right words, then others would finally see our true worth. But this is a trap. It is a chase with no finish line, because you are staking your peace of mind on something you will never control, the perception of another person. Trying to force someone to understand your perspective is like trying to describe a beautiful sunset to someone who has chosen to keep their eyes closed. You can be the most eloquent poet, using the most vivid language, but the truth of the sunset will never reach them until they decide to open their eyes. And you cannot force them to do that. People don't see the world as it is, they see it as they are. Their understanding is filtered through their own life experiences, their own fears, and their own unhealed wounds. When you desperately seek their validation, you are asking them to put down their own baggage to see you clearly, and most people are either unable or unwilling to do so. Think of a woman named Clara who, at age 50, decided to leave her stable corporate job to become a potter. To her, it was a calling she had ignored for decades, a chance to finally create something real with her own hands. But to her family and friends, it was an act of insanity. They saw it as irresponsible, a late-life crisis. At first, Clara was devastated. She spent countless hours in long, draining conversations, trying to justify her decision. She showed them her business plan, her sketches, her passion. But all they saw was risk and foolishness. She was trying to describe the color of her new life to people who could only see in shades of gray. The day she truly found peace was the day she stopped explaining. She didn't become angry or distant. She simply accepted, they don't have to understand. Her job wasn't to make them see, her job was to build her new life. She poured all the energy she had been using for justification into her pottery wheel. Her actions became her explanation. 2 years later, her small studio was thriving. More importantly, she was happy, truly and deeply happy, in a way she had never been before. Her family still didn't fully get it, but they saw her joy. Her calm confidence became an answer that no words could ever have conveyed. Your worth is not a proposal waiting for a committee's approval. It is built in the quiet, consistent choices you make every single day, especially when no one is watching, and especially when no one understands. So, can you be okay with being misunderstood? Can you find the strength to walk your path, even if you are the only one who sees where it leads? As you become more skilled at detaching from the need for external validation, you can turn your attention to an even more subtle and powerful form of self-mastery, understanding the true nature of your emotions. We are taught to think of our feelings as urgent, undeniable truths. If you feel angry, you must act on it. If you feel anxious, you must escape. If you feel hurt, you must defend yourself. We treat our emotions like commands from a drill sergeant. But Stoicism, supported by modern neuroscience, offers a revolutionary perspective. Emotions are not commands. They are merely signals. They are the brain's first, primitive attempt to give you information about the world. And you, the conscious you, have the power to decide whether that information is accurate and what to do with it. Think of it like the dashboard of your car. When the check engine light comes on, you don't immediately pull over, abandon the car, and assume it's going to explode. That would be an overreaction. A wise driver acknowledges the light, understands it's a signal that something needs attention, and then makes a conscious decision. Is it an emergency? Or can I safely drive to a mechanic to have it looked at? Your emotions are your brain's check engine lights. The flash of anger when someone cuts you off in traffic is a signal. The pang of jealousy when you see a friend's success on social media is a signal. The wave of fear before a public presentation is a signal. Scientists can actually show us where these signals originate. Deep in our brain is a small, almond-shaped structure called the amygdala. This is our emotional alarm system. It's ancient, and it's incredibly fast. It fires up in response to perceived threats long before the more rational, thinking part of our brain, the prefrontal cortex, has had a chance to fully process what's happening. This is why our initial emotional reactions are often so strong and feel so uncontrollable. But here is the crucial part: they are not uncontrollable. Practices like mindfulness and the Stoic pause we discussed earlier have been shown to strengthen the connection between the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala. This strengthening allows you to do something remarkable: you can acknowledge the alarm from the amygdala without letting it take over the driver's seat. You can see the check engine light, thank it for the warning, and then let your rational mind decide on the best course of action. This is not about becoming a robot. It is about becoming a better driver of your own mind. It means you can feel the full spectrum of human emotion without being a slave to it. You can feel anger rise within you and choose a response rooted in wisdom, not rage. You can feel anxiety and choose to proceed with courage, not retreat in fear. You can feel the sting of an insult and choose to let it go, preserving your own peace instead of engaging in a battle that will only cause more pain. This is one of the highest forms of human freedom, to feel everything, and to be controlled by nothing. It is the quiet power of knowing that just because a feeling knocks on your door, doesn't mean you have to let it in. We have now arrived at the final and most defining principle of this entire philosophy. After you have learned to heal your past wounds, to discipline your emotions, to guard your energy, and to detach from the opinions of others, what remains? What is the ultimate source of a stable and unshakable life? The answer is simple, yet profound: action. Your true value, your real character, is not found in your beliefs, your declarations, or your intentions. It is found in what you do. It is forged in the quiet, consistent, and often unseen choices you make, day after day. We live in an age of words. People talk about integrity, yet compromise when it's inconvenient. They post about courage, yet stay silent in the face of injustice. They speak of kindness, yet act out of self-interest. The world is full of noise and performance. But the Stoics taught that the ultimate measure of a person is not their words, but their deeds. As the saying goes, the world is changed by your example, not by your opinion. When your actions are in perfect alignment with your deepest values, something remarkable happens. You no longer need external validation. You no longer need to be understood. The quiet satisfaction of knowing you did the right thing, regardless of the outcome, becomes its own reward. It becomes your anchor in the storm. There is a story of a man named Thomas, an independent game developer who worked for years in almost complete obscurity. He had a vision for a game that was thoughtful, artistic, and deeply meaningful. His friends told him it wouldn't sell. Industry experts told him it was too niche. For 3 years, he worked in a small, cramped apartment, pouring his life into this project. There were no fans, no investors, no one cheering him on. Most days, his only companion was the doubt that whispered in his ear. But every morning, he would sit down and write code. Every afternoon, he would sketch graphics. He wasn't doing it for the applause. He was doing it because he believed the world he was building was a world worth building. The day he finally released his game, it was met with silence. No reviews, no fanfare, just a few downloads. By every external measure, it was a failure. An old version of himself would have been crushed. But the man who had poured his values into his work felt a strange sense of peace. He had kept his promise to himself. He had created something he was proud of. He had acted in accordance with his principles. 2 years later, a popular online personality stumbled upon the game and fell in love with it. He shared it with his audience, and overnight, the game became a massive success. But by then, Thomas was already deep into his next project, working in the same quiet, focused way. The success was nice, but it was never the point. The point was the work itself. The point was the action. This is the final test. Can you keep a promise that no one else knows you made? Can you be kind when there is no audience to witness it? Can you do the right thing, simply because it is the right thing to do? When you can answer yes to these questions, you will have found a source of self-worth that no one can ever take away from you. You will no longer be shaken by the world, because you will have become your own solid ground. And so, we come to the end of our journey for today. We began with a feeling that is all too familiar, the quiet exhaustion of being pulled and pushed by the world around us. Together, we have walked a path of transformation. We started by looking inward, understanding that our most painful reactions are often echoes from a past that needs healing, not judgment. From there, we equipped ourselves with the foundational tool of emotional discipline, learning through the lens of modern science how to reframe our thoughts and create a vital space between trigger and response. We then moved from tools to strategy, treating our energy as the precious asset it is and learning to wield silence as a shield to protect it. We navigated the advanced skills of letting go of the need to be understood, and letting go of the illusion that our feelings are commands. And finally, we anchored ourselves in the most profound truth of all, that our ultimate worth is forged not in opinion or emotion, but in the quiet dignity of our own actions. If you have stayed with this journey until this point, it is because something deep inside you recognizes the truth in these words. The world outside will not get quieter. The storms will not cease. But you don't need them to. The entire purpose of this training is to build something inside of you that the world cannot shake. It's not about becoming numb or passionless. It's about cultivating a calm so deep and a foundation so solid that you can feel the winds of chaos blow, and yet remain the still point in the spinning world. As one viewer wisely noted, the ability to stay unbothered is a superpower. It is the quiet strength to protect your peace, the clarity to respond with wisdom instead of impulse, and the freedom to live a life guided by your own values, not by the random provocations of others. You are not just learning to be calm, you are unlocking that superpower within you. If this video has served as a guidepost on your path, if it has given you a tool or a moment of clarity, then make a commitment to yourself. Like this video, not for us, but as a personal declaration that you are dedicated to this work. And if you wish to continue walking this path, to keep building this inner fortress alongside a community of others who are doing the same, then subscribe to the channel. There is so much more to learn, and your journey toward becoming truly unbothered has only just begun.